Welcome to Life, Love, and Good Stuff. Father and daughter chats with David and Sophie McCallum. Here we discuss seeing and living life through the lens of self-love, how family relationships and life experiences hinder or fuel an authentic, rewarding life. A life filled with conscious, compassionate self-love. And sometimes we just have a good chat. Actor David McCallum has appeared in theater, film, and television and is a critically acclaimed author. David's most enduring roles include the Russian agent Ilya Kuryakin in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard on the CBS hit NCIS. Sophie McCallum was born in New York City where she lives today. Sophie's a certified life coach but specializes in self-love coaching as the self-love peddler. Sophie is an energy leadership master practitioner and strives to start each day with love in her heart for herself and the world around her. It's been a long time. I mean, I see you every day, but it's been a long time since we've sat here with the phallic object between us. So
those are great cups.
These are. Mom got 4 at the dollar store, or 5 maybe. You guys finally have appropriate espresso sizes.
Okay, there I am, clean, shaved, tidy.
And here I am, rolled out of bed, not so clean, no makeup. A lot of noises in here.
And as you can see, this has my little workbench behind
Yes,
us.
tell us where we are.
We're in the garage. The garage, it's one of those words that has so many different pronunciations. But yeah, this is where I do everything to make things work, which I've been doing all my life. I suppose one of my earliest things was a piece of woodworking, which was, I found a piece of cherry at school, probably about this big, however big I was, so it's probably a little smaller. And I carved it into a human head, skull. That was my entire summer work in the workshop.
How old were you?
Oh, 14, 13.
And was it any particular human head? Were you going after a likeness?
It was a skull. Oh, yeah.
It was a skull.
A perfect skull, but with all the bones right, with the zygomatic arch and,
Wonder where that is today.
Well, it was put out for exhibition on speech day, at the end of term. And everybody said, "Oh my God, look at that, it's so beautiful." And it was, because it was a piece of cherry, and cherry has a beautiful grain to it. And then I went to collect it afterwards, and it was gone.
Missing. It's out there somewhere.
Who knows where it is? But somebody stole it.
That's an honor, of sorts.
Yeah. And then I remember I made a glider. My first glider, where you could, you just used to let those things go and they take off.
What was it made out of?
Balsa and paper. And it had a wingspan, probably of about 4 feet, at least. And I finished it, and I wanted to take it outside to check it out.
We got noises here. I'm just going to raise your volume.
I'm going to raise my volume.
As the water heater goes on.
As the water heater goes on. Anyway, I took it outside in the garden, which had a slight slope to it, down to a little stream at the bottom of the garden. Very suburban, the whole thing, not the least bit attractive. It's not the countryside, but it's suburban. And the little boy next door, who was a little younger than I was at the time.
Can we turn that off?
No.
Okay. The little boy next door.
But we could wait.
It's a little loud. How long does it go?
I think your mother's using hot water.
That woman,
Not
how
long.
dare, the gall.
Anyway, he was in the back garden, and I let it go, and it flew perfectly down that garden. It was so magnificent. And it landed and it bounced and went into the little flower bed. It must have been in the fall or winter, because there were no flowers in the flower bed. And he went running down to get it. And I said, "Be careful, He slipped, hit the ground, and slid right into it, and smashed it to 1,000 pieces.
Was that its maiden voyage?
That was the first time it had ever flown.
It reminds me of my boys and drones. Every time my husband buys a drone,
And
we go on vacation. We like to go to tropical places, and the first thing they do when we get there is fly the drone right out and into the water. We never see it again.
Oh no, I used to do that I made model planes that I would fly in the sky, but I hit the thing to turn it and it wouldn't turn, so it just went. And that's out there somewhere. But I ran inside and got a box of matches, and the Swan Vestas matches.
What are Swan Vestas matches?
That's the matches we used to use in those days. You'd still buy them. And I lit a little bonfire at the foot of the garden. And balsa wood and paper goes up very quickly. Sorry, he said. I said, that's okay.
Did you make another one?
Yeah, I made several, but not of that size. Never anything so grand. And then I remember something I did was very good stuff, but they had a gasworks. And the gasworks where you take coal and you put it through all these retorts and buildings, and eventually at the other end you have gas which comes out, which goes into a gasometer, which rises up because it's floating in water. And you see them all over Europe. They're huge, big, black things full of gas. We don't use them anymore because they store it. I think they liquefy it, or they do something to store it. And anyway, the whole process through the factory I drew in great detail on a piece of paper about so wide, the whole thing, the entire thing. Absolutely beautiful drawing. And I remember to this day, at the end of term, how proud I was of this factory drawing that I'd done. But I've always loved to make things and do things. I mean, that some bits of wood now become a factory out there.
Let me ask you, have you felt as if you have never lived up to your true potential? Do you hear a voice inside telling you that you're destined for more? Are you craving to love yourself more and live a fuller life? Welcome. My name is Sophie, and I'm your personal self-love peddler. I've created a program that allows you to forge into your most authentic life by guiding you on how to fully self-love. When we love ourselves and hold the space needed to learn about ourselves, our internal voice becomes crystal clear. When we start to listen to that voice, we begin to start living the life of our dreams. The path to getting there is paved with self-love. If you're a woman who does not stop to tune into self-care, to listen to yourself, if you ignore all the red flags and all the signs telling you that you are worth more, then you are exactly who this program is meant for. With the Flourish and Fly Learning How to Self-Love program, you will finally find the answers you have been seeking inside of yourself. We know children and even plants grow and learn best when surrounded by love, compassion, and encouragement. Guess what? So do grown-ass women. The women who work with me learn to nurture their true selves by turning their love inward, to grow and learn, to flourish and fly. If you're struggling with self-love and are nodding your head, yes, please click the link below and join me inside of this program. I cannot wait to guide you to flourish and fly with love. And your headboard, which we have in my house.
Yes, well, when I was courting your mother, we drank Chateau La Lagune. I got a case of wine. I went to Roy Greenblatt in California, used to be on Sunset Strip. I think the family's still there, famous wine store. And he gave me 12 bottles of wine wrapped in brown paper and said, drink them, keep the ones you like, tuck the others away, and don't take the papers off.
Is it Coke or is it Pepsi?
So we literally drank, and I kept them, and I probably kept about 5 of them in the end out of 12. Put them back down when the case was empty, and he took the things off. He said, you picked exactly the same area of Bordeaux.
Wow.
For all 5 wines. They could practically come from the same vineyard. And it was the Saint-Estèphe. And of course, Saint-Estèphe wines have still been my favorite. Now, It's not that they're too expensive. One can afford to go out and buy a $50, $60 bottle of wine, but I don't because I think it's a ridiculous expense. I mean, you can get such beautiful wines for 12, 14, $15. You don't have to spend a massive amount of money, but the Sunday stuff, I don't know where the hell it came upon that, but it's. I'm always aware with wine of the guys who are in the fields planting the vines and picking the grapes and then cutting all the wood back and tying it back for the next year's harvest. And to digress yet again, I play a character on television that digresses all the time, so it's okay. I was up on the Finger Lakes doing a play, and we went to a vineyard up there. It's a crazy man. I think he was with the big family of one of the New York families. He broke away to be on his own. He loved to paint these incredible, awful, huge paintings. But he did wines, and he said, "You're lucky. You go out every night and do your play once a night for 8 performances. And then that goes, and you do another play, and you do television, you do this." He said, "What I have chosen to do in my life, I do once a year, and I'll probably, if I'm lucky, do it 10 or 12 or 14 times."
Hence the painting, something to fill the gaps.
So fill the gaps, yes. But if only he'd painted with a little less, shall we say, garishness.
There's a painting out there for everyone.
Yeah. But it's this business of the connection between what hands can do and what your brain says to do. And then you end up with, my father being a violinist, we had Strads and Guarneris and Amatis and Villons and all the famous violin makers who would come through the house. Even my mother's cello was a Villon. And there's a time in the 18th century when they were all made, the great violins, the Stradivarius and things. And the scientists, they have this extraordinary sound that nobody's ever produced before or since. But what's interesting is the scientists took the wood from the trees where they put the trees. They made the varnish the way they made the varnish, with all the ingredients locally in Cremona in Italy. And they made violins, and they sound like a $25 store-bought violin. They couldn't produce the sound.
Why do you think that is?
I've no idea. Why is it that there's the Mozarts and Haydns and Beethovens and Brahms of that area and then it sort of went away?
Well,
and look at painting. I mean, you probably know more about painting than I do. But
well, I believe, and I don't do research. I mean, I don't do formal research, but in my experience, there's the law of attraction that like energy attracts like energy. And I think that there's a whole dimensionality to our energy and what people put out and what they get back. And when you happen to get the right combination of energy, whether it's between the instrument makers and their wood or Mozart and his father or whatever it may be, the energy is the differentiator. I mean, don't you feel it in your own life? There are times where you have energy for some things and other times where you don't. And that's a shift. And if you're aware, you can feel it. I can feel it.
Yes.
You don't want to.
I mean, well, yes. But I mean, if you get into the endocrinal system and the whole of your lymphatic systems and begin to study those and see how complex they are. I mean, the human body, I've done enough at autopsies now, watched them, and actually stood by the man doing the autopsy. And I know that the human body, how it functions, and I know the pieces. And there's one form of autopsy where you can lift all the organs out and check to see what's wrong with them over there, and you're left with the cavity. But at the same time, there's a nervous system, which when you're doing an autopsy, is completely cut into and destroyed. You're not actually looking at the nervous system.
But it's dead.
But well,
it's without energy.
Everything, it's completely without energy. And that, my most specific answer of that, memory of that, is having a dog put to sleep in your arms.
Oh, that's the worst.
And you go from a live to a completely dead one, and the weight just, the energy goes. Then to digress even further, I asked somebody, an endocrinal doctor or whoever, I said, has anybody ever measured the potential
that leaves
of that particular moment when the energy leaves the body and something that is alive suddenly becomes completely a dead weight? And they said, yes, the Russians did it, but they've never divulged what they found.
Well, I remember it was, I think, 1982 when Hunkamunka died, my beloved guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, I loved that. I've always thought that
chipping the stone.
Yeah, you made a gravestone, which I kept for years until it eventually I couldn't carry this guinea pig gravestone around. Having left the guinea pig body buried where she was, but we took the gravestone. Pierre and I lugged it around for years. But I remember she was acting funny, and I brought her into your bedroom in Manhattan, and you had her in your lap, and Mom was holding me because I knew something was wrong. And you said, before you told me she had died, you said, when something dies, there's a last... And you said, that's what Hunkamunka just did. And you said at the time, I felt her leave, and she has died. And I remember sitting, that was my first experience with loss. And I remember sitting in the back of the campus coach bus going to school in the morning. It wasn't a small school bus in Manhattan. It was a big one. You know?
I remember the first day you went.
Yeah, I could hardly step up the step.
Came up to you.
But I have a clear memory of sitting on the aisle and looking down the school bus, sobbing and thinking, I don't know how I'm going to live the rest of my life without this guinea pig. Like, how will I go on? But the way you said to me, very sort of lovingly and pragmatically, that she has relaxed and she is okay. I wasn't worried about her, but that was pure devastation. And that's why pets are wonderful, because we went on to have a lot more.
My father used to tell us they'd all gone to the happy hunting ground.
I think you said that to me too. I'm sure with the guinea pigs hunting.
When some person dies, he always said they had it in their portfolio.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're into death.
Yeah, let's get back to building things with wood. So in Long Island, where Hunkamunka is still somewhere buried today, where we had a house for 10 years, you turned the entire upstairs, very rustic upstairs of our garage, into a woodworking room. And we had free reign to go up there at any age and use anything. It wasn't a lot of power tools, but it was saws and hand tools. And I still have little things that I've built. I have the heart bench. I need to take a picture of that, because with hearts being my main thing. You may remember the heart bench? And unfortunately, it suffered a little bit, because at one point the heart bench went into Hunkamunka's cage because she liked to bury under it, but we discovered she also liked to eat it. So my heart bench has little Hunkamunka bites.
Well,
but we still use it to this day.
That's provenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You let us build anything.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, when there was World War II, and all of the young men, when the armistice came about, the bad guys surrendered. All of these young men came back, and every theatre in England was flooded with handsome young men who'd been in the war. You couldn't get a job anywhere as a young actor. And so I decided, because I like to work with my hands, I'd apply for a job as a stage manager. I'd already apprenticed myself to an electrician, so I'd learned all about electrical and 240 volts. And volts over amps equals ohms and all this stuff, and I could wire just about anything. And I installed a switchboard actually at one point in one theatre. So I'd done a lot of electrical, so I applied to be a stage manager, and then that meant I had to sort of do something in the way of an apprenticeship. And my father was then the leader of the Royal London Philharmonic Orchestra, or was it the Royal Philharmonic? I can't but he was working at Glyndebourne, and so he talked to the manager of Glyndebourne and said, my son, blah, blah, blah. And I got the job as assistant stage manager at the Glyndebourne Opera Company, which they do 5 operas and then they travel them to the Edinburgh Festival. And when I got there, Lister Welsh, the stage manager and the stage director, and there were 3, Dandridge. Anyway, they said, we don't really need a stage manager, but Harry Kellard, who was doing the props, he needs somebody to work in the prop shop.
Oh, so fun.
So we'd go, and people, Leslie Hurry, Oliver Messel, the great designers, would send these sketch sheets of the dancers all dancing with chains around their wrists. And Harry would say, we have to make 40 chains for 40 dancers, you know. All made of papier-mâché, had to be light, they had to be this.
Wow.
And all of that. And then I was also, some of the headdresses, the jewelry, I learned how to sort of fix all that and do that. And in Sforza del Destino, the monks come out with the candles. You know, they're 3 feet long, with a little bulb in the top, and you had to drill through and set in the batteries so that when the monks come out chanting, all the lights are on. But I did all that, and then in Figaro, when Cherubino, I think he just jumps out the window or escapes, I had a bathtub set up with a sheet of plate glass, and I would jump through some slats of wood so they'd all crash. Somebody else would hit the hammer and the glass would shatter and fall into a metal bathtub. And the effect got a huge laugh from the audience, and I was so pleased with that. I did that every night. But I worked with Harry, and then when the operas were being travelled to Edinburgh, he said, David, he said, darling, bless him, I just can't do all that, you know, that traveling, all this stuff. Would you mind? And so I became virtual property master of 5 operas and traveled all the stuff to Edinburgh. Harry was there, of course. And I would set up every single night as assistant stage manager / property master. But what was interesting, many years later, I went back and did The Lion in Winter with Peter O'Toole's wife.
I remember that.
And my name was on the marquee, David McCallum, Sean Phillips. But I mean, just the juxtaposition, and we Jock, who was the stage manager when I was there as a little boy, he was in the pub next door when I went in one night, and he said, "You've come up in the world." You know? So it was a wonderful sort of deja vu all over again. But that business of doing things, and so I've always done it. And I get great pleasure from it, which is another very important thing. And also, if I'm walking around New York and they're tearing a building down and there's a beautiful piece of wood in a garbage can, I instantly want to go and grab it, take it home and do something with it. I did actually throw out a pile of wood in that corner that I've been collecting from various dustbins.
Well, you've used a lot of it, and I'll take some pictures of some of the things that you've made.
Yeah, over the years.
To share.
Yeah, and that's the money boxes.
I'll definitely show that. That's beautiful.
Because whenever Catherine and I are in the streets and we find rejected pennies and even quarters, dimes, and the odd dollar bill, you can tell your story of the dollar bill. But we pick it up and we give it to the other one. And each of us has a money box with little...
And not only do you give it to Mom, but when you find a lucky penny, you often will make a drawing around the penny.
Oh, I've done that?
You have done that many times. I don't know if you ever did this, but for instance, you draw the penny and then raindrops and you'd say pennies from heaven. Or I'm making that one up, but you do creative things such as that. So. Yeah. Well,
my tree with the hearts.
Your tree with the hearts.
God, that's a long time ago. What year was that?
89. I think. I'll have to look.
Yeah.
Well, Thank you, Dad, for telling us about building with your hands
Well,
and all that you've
we're
made.
still doing it.
We're still doing it.
This has been a mess because I just put those shelves from there over there, and then these shelves all the way up to the ceiling. So it's been a work in progress, and then I got more shelves over there which you can't see. But I'm so happy now. It's all
Organized.
Even the saws are hanging
Even
up.
the saws are hanging up. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
If Hunka Munka's listening,
She is.
she still loves you.
Yes, she does. Hi, this is Sophie McCallum, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of the absolutely exceptional fans of my father's who have been listening to my podcast. I am the Self Love Peddler. You can find me at selflovepeddler.com. And I work with women, as you know from listening to my podcast, to help them uncover love for themselves so that they can truly get to know themselves, so that they can have these lives that flourish into their wildest dreams. So I didn't originally set out to do a podcast with my dad. I did a podcast with a lot of different people, but the podcast that I did with him, that one episode just resonated with me so much. I just had to keep going. I am so very, very, very blessed to have him in my life and to have my mother in my life. Every day that they are here with me, I know is a gift. And they have really helped me uncover my passion, which is, as I said, helping women uncover their passions. So if you or any loved ones that you know might be interested in working with me, I just launched an amazing course called Flourish and Fly, which is the basics to self-love. It's a super effective, fun, and efficient course that I really enjoyed making. And even when I watched it to make sure everything was in order, I got so much out of it as a viewer. So that was really rewarding to create something and then to profit from it in my proof watching, if you will. Um, I work with women of all ages. You may have granddaughters who you see on social media all the time or on their devices all the time. I know that can be really scary for those of us who don't really know what's going on there. It's a tough time to be a young woman growing up. Um, all women are told that the future is female and that they hold all the cards, yet at the same time they have food, fashion, and diet industries telling them that they're not good enough and that they need to change to be worthy. So it's a tough time. There's a lot of dialogue coming at women from different directions, women of all ages. So just going to promote what I'm offering to the community in case there's a woman in your community or if you yourself would be interested in checking out my course. I'm really extremely proud of it. Flourish and Fly. It's my calling getting these things out there. And I really appreciate your help and your encouragement and your support. And for all you male Man from Uncle fans out there, I don't mean to exclude you. Thank you as well. It's a real joy sharing this connection I have with my dad with you. Every time I sit down with him, I learn so much. And sometimes I hear stories that I've heard over and over and over again, and I don't mind it for a minute. And I love that even though I've heard a lot of these stories before, you guys haven't. So it's a real gift to share this. And what's been really fun too is as we go through this process, at first I would come to our recordings with a list of things to discuss. And now when I see my dad, which is very often, we're quite close, he says things like, so I was thinking this would be a good topic or that would be a good topic. And he's starting to think about this format and this forum that we have together. And he's so sweet. He's always learning, right? And always growing and always trying new things. As many of you know, he's writing his second book right now and he's all in. And he's also still working full time and flying out to California to work. But he's started to bring topics to the table for us to discuss, such as energy. And that's never been like his forte, his playground, if you will. And it's not that he's taking my lead, it's that he is finding a way to be interested in what interests me. And he knows that through that, he will grow. And we can all learn a lot from him. He's really a special human being. And it's such a pleasure and such a treat for me to be doing this podcast. I hope we do many, 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 many more. And again, this is just a little interruption to say thank you, to plug my job, because I feel so strongly that what I do is providing a service that can help so many. And it brings me so much joy to share it with you. And I'm so glad that I have brought you joy sharing some more of my dad with you. And let's just keep it all going. So thank you. And more to come, I promise. Keep on listening and keep on being your awesome selves. I really appreciate you. Thank you for spending time with us today. Please hit the subscribe button so you're notified each time a Life, Love, and Good Stuff Father and Daughter Chats with David and Sophie McCallum podcast drops. Until next time, remember to lead with love.